So the simplistic way that I put it at is I can't help you get to your goal until I know what you're making those decisions based on. So we can work on something for weeks and months, but it may not be true to your integrity of who you want to be and where you want to be if we don't have these, this set of like 4 to 6, 7, 8 core key values in that category of your life. So I start with people in the generic, what are your personal core values? In other words, like, on your tombstone, what would you want to do? And if we reverse engineer any personal decisions in your life, what would be the yes or no decision-making filter? That's like the lenses of your glasses, right? So you can say, does this meet this criteria? Yes, I'll do it. It doesn't meet this criteria. No, I won't. And then start doing that with different aspects of your life, relationships, jobs, parenting stuff, community stuff, financial stuff, whatever it may be, food. I choose my coffee of where I buy my coffee from based on a set of core values. Organic, fair trade, 1%, carbon offset. It donates to women who are being abused in third world countries, right? I'm like, tick, 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 tick. You're going to get an extra couple dollars out of me because you meet my core, right? So I try to do as much as possible with that because then I know, I feel good about it. 2, I feel consistent. And 3, I'm not going to regret. I'll regret way less than we typically do when we're not being proactive like that.
Okay. All right. Beautiful. I'm going to now leap us forward a little bit.
Yes.
And I'm going to, so I think you can help us build this bridge. Now I'm going to throw us into the situation where we've got a coworker that we don't get along with. We don't like how she's operating or how he's operating, and they're driving us crazy. We're not maybe even sure why we don't like them, but there's just something about them, and we want to stop this. So what's kind of some steps we can take to get better or ready to have that conversation?
Sure. So I think you and I know this from our clinical training is the first thing is the understanding that they're a mirror to something going on in us.
Beautiful.
And the idea is it may be a micro to a macro or a macro to a micro. So you have to search around for it. It may not be linear that they're acting this way. And if I can define how they're acting, that bothers me. It's because I'm doing that in some way. It may be a thematic thing about that, right? They could be very, very abrupt and very curt. And you might find ways in your life that you're just not, right. You're being shortchanged, or you're shortchanging others with your time, effort, and energy. And it may be showing up in a verbal way with that person, but you're doing it with your time, effort, and energy. So one, I would ask people to kind of look at that. It's not what the problem is what is your belief about the problem? That is the first thing that I would challenge them to do. Yep. So I think if that's tool 1, step 1 into this process. And number 2 is that, it's like the 4 agreements. One of the big 4 agreements is like, it's not about you. Don't take it personal.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going back to like that level of narcissism. Like, well, they're only doing this to me. Well, they're, why do we have to get stuck in that? Because that's the first, the next line of like, it hurts me. Why isn't anybody else doing anything about it? So we start becoming victimized in that story. And I would then ask, what's the benefit to being a victim? How does being a victim in this specific circumstance serve you? Right? This is because remember, none of this has anything to do with the other person. They're just because someone else might be in the same scenario and it won't bother them.
How
that person acts. Yeah. Right? So this is all about us more than it is about them. But once we start having that level of like, instead of being reactionary and just jumping in on it and like snapping at them and like going to HR and whatever it may be, is first understanding these things. And this is going to take some work. This is why we're having these conversations and why you have these conversations on your podcast. But it is sometimes not solving the problem with them is really about solving the problem with yourself.